At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Hey everyone, this is Mary, and before we get into the episode, I just wanted to take a quick minute and remind you that you can pre-order our book, Dolls of Our Lives, Why We Can't Quit American Girl, at any bookseller of your choice. You can go to bookshop.org where you'll find our own store with a link to buy it from any independent bookseller. You can also go to our website, dollsofourlivespod.com, with another link to again buy it anywhere you want to buy your favorite books. We so appreciate all of you supporting our show, and we're so excited to share our book with you. We'll also be recording and releasing an audiobook version of the book, and we look forward to sharing that information with you soon. Thanks again, everyone. We really so appreciate all of you. Welcome, everyone, to Dolls of Our Lives. This is the podcast where we're reliving the American Girl series book by book. I'm Mary.
I'm still Allison.
Neither one of us is Barbie.
No, or Barbara.
Or Barbara. Or Ruth.
Or Ken.
Or Ken.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
But we're both hashtag Knuff, perhaps? I don't know.
I think I'm Knuff if I needed to be. How has the Barbie movie changed your life?
Wow. I mean, I think the greatest compliment you can give anything in pop culture is I've been thinking about it a lot.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about it a lot. I did realize going to see it that I don't own anything pink, which I think there was a call to action, dress pink or Barbie style. I wasn't able to do that, but I did have fun seeing everybody's outfits and things like that. It was the first time I'd been to a movie theater in years, years and years, since before the pandemic, actually. So it was a big moment for me on all levels, but I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. But how do you feel about it?
I separate my clothes by color, like a cartoon character. So I went to the pink section of my closet and I made a choice accordingly. I have studied the Barbie movie twice. So I've gone twice. I loved it very much. I found it a lot more compelling on second view because I wasn't as distracted trying to figure out what I was watching. I got very interested in kind of the mechanics of how they made the movie and how they replicated things about, how you play with Barbie, and that's how Barbie experiences Barbie Land. But I enjoyed it a lot. I
did too. And Greta Gerwig, I think, got so much right about this. I love the physical comedy of Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, more on him in a moment, who when she goes on her side and can't move her limbs in that way, it's very Barbie, and how she can't when her feet go flat. I thought she really sold a lot of the physical touches. Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie was A++++. Loved her. And, I thought the whole movie was really great. I think the best part of the movie for me was the Push by Matchbox 20 montage. I thought in a lot of ways, and I know a lot of other people have said this is by no means a hot take or unique take, but I think the movie could have easily been called Ken because he ran away with this movie, I think. And it's really about male fragility.
'Cause I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. Is it my destiny to live and die a life of blonde fragility?
I think it's strongest when she's tackling that. I think the white feminism jumps out a little too much sometimes, especially even when she makes a joke about it. One of the characters calls Margot Robbie white feminism Barbie or something like that. But it's I said to you off air, when America Ferrera is at the end of the movie going back to the quote real world, she's going back to work for those white bro CEOs at Mattel. And, Issa Rae, who I'm a huge Issa Rae fan, isn't really given a ton to do. And then is well, things are going to be different now. And it's no details, stay tuned. But I mean, not to be a downer about the movie, it makes it seem like I don't like it. I laughed so hard at this movie. I thought it was really, really funny.
I agree that Ken is kind of the surprising emotional center of a lot of the film. And I think there's kind of two different journeys. And this might be considered a spoiler, but there's kind of a lot pushed in the promotion that, Barbie is always having the best day ever, but Ken only has a good day when Barbie looks at him. And a lot of this is about Ken self-actualizing as a Ken. And I read the rest of it as Barbie making a choice to become fully human.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with like challenges and pain. And, there's something in the beginning of the film that was interesting. We talked about it a lot when we read a history of Ruth Handler for our Patreon, which was the idea that most mass-produced dolls were designed to teach children to be mothers. And then Barbie is an adult. Barbie is something to emulate and aspire to, as opposed to a younger person for you to take care of. And there's a fascinating Planet of the Apes style montage with girls and their dolls. For me, I think like having a little bit more history on Ruth Handler and thinking about where Barbie came from made me a lot more interested in it, and also made me immediately want to buy Barbies. Like, I have been pulled to the Barbie aisle subconsciously and almost bought more.
Wow. I mean, see, I'm in a different place. Like, I'm not a huge Barbie person. So for me, like, the fact that I was like so vibing on it, I was like, that's really a credit to it. But like, to get into the Ruth of it all, like, I think we both were sort of surprised at how they presented her in the movie, given the book we just read.
Yeah, she plays a pretty important role in Margot Robbie as Barbie, kind of understanding different things about herself. I think having a little bit of backstory on how Mattel got created and where Barbie falls in the arc of Ruth Handler's life, knowing that Barbie was named after her own daughter, Barbara. There was a rumor going around on the internet that a character who very briefly is in the film was actual Barbara. And I totally fell for that. That has been debunked. That is not Barbara. She's actually someone who's like big in the Hollywood behind the scenes scene. But yeah, this idea that Barbie is like comes from a place and is inspired by a real person and named for someone's real daughter, and that they were in fact estranged, is pretty fascinating.
It's weird that Ruth is presented in almost kind of a purgatory space, and within the Mattel world, it's almost like a Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe. Like, you go through a cupboard and you enter this other portal, and she's like in a very domestic space. And as this book suggests, like, she openly was saying, like, I don't like being at home. Like, she had 2 children she loved, named Barbie and Ken. Like, unpack that naming in therapy, if you will. But, she did not want to be a wife and mother who stayed at home. She did not identify with anything domestic. She really loved being a businesswoman. And in fact, Barbie was like a means to an end. It wasn't like the thing that was her life's work, in which many ways, like Pleasant Round, like I would think American Girl is like her crowning achievement. Like, it was very personal for her. Not so for Ruth. Like, I mean, Ruth was just as hyped that Hot Wheels really popped off a few years after Barbie came on the scene, and G.I. Joe and like all these other things that her company produced, as Barbie. So to have her presented like in this like kitchen scene with a sewing machine on the table was like, what's going on here? Like, why did they choose to do it this way?
What do you think was a takeaway of Barbie movie? Like, what do you think you were supposed to walk away with?
Unclear.
Okay.
I mean, I think there's a piece of it that's like, I always believe that Intro to Women's Studies is for people who would never take it. Like, that's the problem, is that like the people who probably need to think about gender as a concept, or, the pressure, the power relations, and all these things related to it, would never actually sign up for that class. It's like kind of preaching to the choir in some sense. So in a way, I think Barbie the movie is kind of surreptitiously like trying to educate people who would never sign up or pick up a book on that topic, just about the facts of like basic feminism, like issues of equity, and importantly, like masculinity issues. Like, that to me was like what she was trying to do there. Like, to me, it was like, none of this is news, but it was like very funny the way it was packaged. And I did think the male fragility stuff like really landed. I think there should be more on that.
I hope there is a lesson in general that obviously we love to revisit things that we've enjoyed in the past. That's kind of how we, landed here. There was something that felt so innovative, even though this was about a brand that a lot of people know really well. And I sincerely hope that the lesson isn't like make 8 Barbie movies, but rather like punt for something really amazing and see what people will go along with for a cinematic experience. Like, that's not a lesson of embedded in the film, but that is, I hope, a takeaway from this. I had not been so excited to see a movie for a really long time.
Yeah, I felt that way too. And I feel like a lot of people walking into that theater, it felt like an event. It felt like an occasion. And like, I think people like to be part of a shared experience. Like, I'm not someone who gets really hyped for like the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not really into football, but like people are like hungry for a shared experience. And, you know, where you can like all dress on theme and like, you know, show up at something and then have something to talk about in common. And it felt nice to be back on that. It made me kind of nostalgic for like going to the movies in the summer, like these big summer movies that like I feel like that hasn't really happened in a while, at least like in my world. But it also made me somewhat curious about the American Girl movie or movies that might result from this like Mattel pairing with artists to allow them to make things that are in part or at least seeming to send up their own products.
Also, speaking of American Girl movie, maybe they could focus, or someone could focus, on maintaining the archive that already exists.
Somebody call Julia Roberts right now. We're upset.
We made a promise I don't want to say a promise, but we dangled out into the universe that we would watch the Melody movie. And this is not an episode about the Melody movie because it is missing.
We honestly, I thought it was me. Like, I thought I just couldn't find it. And I was going to appeal to my cousin who, like, related to Barbie, let his 4-year-old daughter watch it on a phone on some website he knows where he can download movies in the theater. That's another whole story. He was like, yeah, I wasn't there when she watched it. I hope she got a lot out of it. I'm like, okay. But, you know, I'm sure he could find it for us if we need that. But we've tried to stay within legal, like, lanes on this show. It's kind of stunning. Like, Julia Roberts produced the Felicity movie, and I think Samantha, I'm not sure, but like, she has her movies, the ones that she produced, they're out there. Where, like, what have you been able to unearth about the Melody movie?
Thank you for asking. You know, I want to talk about some of the cinematic high points that we've experienced, starting with the Felicity movie, right?
That's really, the number one. That nothing will ever top that movie for me ever.
Like a horse out of a gate.
It's not what you think.
It's not what you think. Shailene Woodley, like, proving her acting chops, going later into The Fault in Our Stars, right? Like, you know, honestly, like, amazing springboard. Great
story
career.
Checks out.
Obviously. We have that. We have the next cinematic high point, which for me is the Kit movie, which actually debuted in theaters. A cast that no American Girl character has, like, really deserved. You know, we had Joan Cusack, we had Stanley Tucci, like, way too many famous people. Marcia Gay Harden, for gosh sakes, has been in an American Girl movie. Cut to the Mary Ellen movie. It was a film, right? It was a film.
It happened.
We watched it.
Somebody rolled tape on that. There were people who I hope got a nice check for that. We hope. I don't know.
It was
I'm thinking about them.
You know, and so we are looking at these kind of two different eras, I want to say. We have an early era of Julia Roberts produced high quality films. The Molly movie, the Samantha movie, all of these are really wonderful, along with Felicity. Then we have Kit, which they put in theaters as a proper cinematic feature. And then we have this more recent batch of films, which also includes a Julie movie and a Mary Ellen movie, which we just watched. And we do our diligence when we plan for this show. I look up links. I make sure that things are accessible. Amazon produced a series of American Girl films that are the most recent, including the Melody movie in 2016. They created this. They have also destroyed it. Like Frankenstein and its monster, they said no mas. They took the Melody movie, Love Has to Win, and they said, actually, Love might lose. We have decided there's no more Melody movie. Have you seen any of it?
No, and my eyebrows are like arched up to my hairline at this point. Like, what the hell is going on?
So Melody movie was taken off of the Amazon Prime website. You are only able to find reviews. We plan, you know, far in advance, but we also look at things closer. And truly, it was not that long ago that we just checked in on this film. And then we planned to record this episode, and love was lost. Love was missing. Thankfully, a few people have uploaded a good amount of this film on TikTok as recently as late 2022. So I was able to watch a good portion of it, but you cannot watch it in its entirety because it was not released in a DVD package, unlike other films, and it is not on the Amazon website. And I would never do this, but unscrupulous people who might use websites to find things, shockingly, this wasn't hot on the dark web. So,
damn. So you're saying we have to basically go on TikTok and watch this like a Taylor Swift concert at this point? Like that's the only way to get into this?
Maybe someone has filmed it some other way, but I have a suspicion based on the footage that I was able to watch. A primary reason that people were sharing their snippets of the Melody movie is they felt that it was so resonant in their own lives. There is a scene where young Melody is basically scolded by a teacher right leading into a field trip, and young people are asked to hold hands, and a white student who would have to hold hands with Melody refuses. And there's a conflict that ensues. But the scene that I think may have gotten this removed from Amazon Prime is when Melody is in her classroom and she objects to the Pledge of Allegiance. And she says, "I want to know why the Pledge of Allegiance is a lie." And she's scolded for interrupting her class, and she's called a delinquent. And Melody is not taking this. She starts to chant the Pledge of Allegiance is a lie. And she talks about racism and the fact that the country is divisible because she is living through it. And so I suspect with the way that certain streaming services have been purging certain content, that was not allowed to stand. Please note, folks, that the Mary Ellen movie is fine. Like, no one...
Of course. Of course. Oh my God. Wow. I mean, that description makes me want to see it all the more. That is wild. Like, can we speculate basically from what you're saying that like Jeff Bezos and company were basically like, it's too hot with the Moms for Liberty and Ron DeSantis of it all that we're going to pull this off the platform?
So a lot of content that features certain themes, right, or characters have been pulled, right? So we've heard from listeners, we've heard from other people that there is content that people really adored, particularly content that featured queer characters in a positive way that is simply being taken off of streaming services. I do find it really striking that Melody is such a recent character, and to see the way that she has been abandoned. And to also know that people have really spoken out in strong favor. Like, if the people who interact with us are any measure, the interest level in Claudie Wells is sky high. People love this character. Yeah. They want to consume things with this character. And it's been a very gradual rollout of additional content. And you kind of wonder what maybe the motivation is there. But based on this and other scenes that I've caught a glimpse of on TikTok, there's quite a bit with Sister Yvonne. There's talk about protests, about activism. I think as kind of an interesting segue, the book that we read for today asks us to go back in time with Melody. When you look at the fact that this film has been pulled, you know, that option is like slowly being taken away from a lot of students and places, right? Even the idea of entertaining, imagining life in a moment of civil unrest is being taken off the table.
Yeah, I mean, it just sort of feels surreal at times, like what is going on with a lot of this censorship. And I do think from everything you've said, like it would seem like the corporation made a decision to bow to any kind of controversy and take it off with that in mind, which is wild to me. I mean, it's like we were just talking about Barbie, like Mattel made some kind of calculation to be like, we're going to accept whatever anyone says about this, like I would say very strongly feminist message. We're going to co-sign that, whatever it might cost us to people who don't share those views, because we think this is a way to kind of like relaunch our brand or like keep it relevant. Amazon, by exchange, is like going the opposite direction, it would seem, and like pulling things that might seem, you were talking about the Pink Lady show, like also was pulled, and some listeners pointed us to that because we had said we were going to watch that too, and it was gone within like 2 weeks or something.
It's revealing, right? We've had the conversation that some American Girl character books have been removed from curriculum or have been taken off of library lists, or, you know, people have kind of changed their perspective on those books. And other characters notably have stayed consistently safe. Molly and Felicity being among the two that are not considered controversial. Whereas, you know, and we don't know, right? We don't know the exact reason why the Melody movie is gone. But the fact that Amazon produced this film, it's not as if there's some other logistical conflict. This is their film that is now taken off of their platform, and there is no other way to consume this film.
Well,
HBO, they've been under criticism for the fact that when they take things off of streaming services, now that most services no longer offer extensive DVD or other packages, you do not have a way to consume this content.
Absolutely. And I think it's also worth bringing into this conversation that the state of Florida just released its American history curriculum for the year, in which it openly suggests that you should, when talking about slavery, say that enslaved people benefited from slavery, which is insane. Like, I mean, I don't even know how anyone in this year could put those views out, but to think that people are using like the mechanism of curriculum, which is absolutely going to influence kids, to put out these like really scary, factually inaccurate views. And then in our pop culture, people are like being overly cautious about the influence they might have on kids, to take on what some might call progressive views. I mean, I don't think that they are. It's like, it's wild to me.
Also, worth noting is people like Debbie Reese have pointed out that something like Barbie is an imperfect vehicle, right? There is a line in the film that is offensive, right? About indigenous culture and the spread of a certain disease. There's, kind of like the calculation to include a kind of Mount Rushmore, and there's, more going on with that. But, part of why we look at these things and we kind of pick at them is there's a lot that we can learn from them. I think that's where the fact that American Girl chose this model of choose your own adventure books becomes something worth really looking at, right? We knew that we wanted to do more with Melody. We chose not to dig super deeply into Nenea's choose your own adventure books because they are challenging. They are not linear. They are not easy to talk about. But I think with Melody in particular, the fact that there has been a constriction on how much other content you can consume, the fact that this book is safe, but her film is not, kind of talking about what are you asked to do in a book like this and what was taken off the table with getting rid of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to think about like how different genres are perceived to have different levels of influence on kids, and the choices that you can make as a parent, in what you choose to like offer to your kids. Like, I wonder with this book, is it different from some of the others where, because it's choose your own adventure, like, are we imagining kids reading this on their own and kind of like going on that personal journey? Is this something that parents are meant to read with kids? Like, I don't know, but what was your experience reading this book? And like, were you someone who read choose your own adventure books?
This may be the first choose your own adventure that I've either ever read or read in a long time. Music in My Heart promised what I thought was going to be kind of, a lighthearted romp, perhaps, or I don't know. I don't really know what I expected. I'll talk a bit about the choices that I made in reading this book and my examination, but generally choose your own adventure is not for me. Like, to me, that's in the author's hands. Like, I chose you as an author.
Oh, wow.
You choose the adventure. Like, this not be for me.
So like, your life as a reader is like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, I don't want to drive. I've asked you to give me a ride. Wherever you want to go is cool.
Yeah, even the very stressful notion of physically, because I read a physical book and you did not, the physical fact that I knew there were pages in between that I was not reading because I was being asked to flip to other pages. If this isn't a tactile experience you've ever had, I did not like that.
Interesting. I read the Kindle version of this, and I also should say, like, this was my situation reading this book. I was on a train. I was going to New York for the day, and a man saw me reading this book on my laptop. I was doing some work, and I stopped, and I was reading this book. And he looked over and he was like, "Oh, is that for school?" Allison, as you know, I just turned 37 years old. Like, I'm like, I was speechless. I was like, "Are you kidding?" I was like, no. And then I was sort of embarrassed. Like, I don't really want to get into why I'm reading a book for children when I have none and I'm not one. But I was like, whatever. So that's kind of where I went. So we had like different interesting experiences reading this, because you read the hard copy, I read Kindle. But when I heard Music in My Heart, I thought it was a reference to the Meryl Streep movie, Music of the Heart. No, not what that was about. I didn't grow up. I did read there is a brand of book or called Choose Your Own Adventure. Like, I thought that was a reference for a long time to like the style of this book. It's not. It's an actual like brand of book. And I can get into like how this man invented that, or these two guys. But to me, like, the best Choose Your Own Adventure thing of all time is their Twitter thread game. You're Beyonce's assistant, don't get fired. Do you remember when that happened?
I do not.
Okay, so this woman made this incredible game that literally she built in a Twitter thread, and I will find it and post it. But basically, like, you go through and you have to make decisions about what kind of food Beyonce wants for breakfast and so on. And then it like bridges off into all these different directions, just like this book. And, you know, basically you get fired real fast unless you really know what you're doing. So that kind of thing I thought was fun. And that was, again, like on a touch screen. So I wondered, like, if it was easier for me to engage because you're not having to flip the pages back and forth between the different options. Of course, like Oregon Trail game is another kind of choose your own adventure game. But like this is kind of like taking us back to the egg. Like before there were video games on that model, there were books. And like, how did you feel about this book?
I found it challenging. I will say this. I want to give us kind of like the baseline summary so people know like how this starts and how this ends, right? Because there is a basic structure that the book follows where no matter what, like you do begin in the same place. And Denise Lewis Patrick is given partial authorship credit, I think, because Melody is her character. But this was really written by someone else, which I also found a bit jarring.
The tone was different. The voice of the book was different.
The voice of the book was different. And if you look this up, you can see that like right? Like you are asked to step back in time and to go on a journey with Melody that's written by Aaron Falligan. And so this is not all like the same author that we have been used to, but we are going to Melody's world. And I want to just give us that quick kind of publisher's description to see like how they frame the book.
Okay.
What would it be like if a girl suddenly found herself in Melody Ellison's world in the midst of the civil rights movement of the 1960s? Together, she and Melody could speak up about fairness, join a demonstration, volunteer with a civil rights group, or even use her voice to sing backup for a Motown musician. Reader's journey back in time can take whatever twists and turns they choose as they select from a variety of exciting options in this multiple ending story. I'm not sure I wanted to be on this journey. And I say that with complete respect. Like, just the notion, to me, what makes historical fiction so powerful is you are showing without telling. And this was all about like a kind of abrupt and clunky telling. Like, I am fine reading a book like Orphan Train. I don't want to be on a train from the 1930s.
That's right. I think that's a good point. I kind of am wondering if this is a good moment to kind of like bring in the history of this like series, because yes. I think it leads to a point that I think is important for why maybe we didn't enjoy this book versus like what it was inspired to do. So like the series Choose Your Own Adventure was first published in 1976, which is kind of an interesting era to think about for like kind of empowering kids to be at the center of their own narratives. Anyway, by Edward Packard. And who was the other guy's name? Okay, interestingly, I just pulled up the Wikipedia page because I didn't put the other guy's name in my notes. Sorry to that man, to quote Kiki Palmer. But what's interesting is, let's just go with Ed for a second. And there's an article in the New Yorker about the history of this genre where Leslie goes and interviews Edward Packard, and then the other person has passed. But essentially he was reading to his kids, and when he would tell them stories at night, he would start, because they wanted different kinds of stories, he would write in different options, and then they could kind of choose different options. They would have different outcomes, and he would make it up on the fly. And then he decides, he's a lawyer, that like his fun activity or hobby will be to try to write this as a book. And he syncs up with this other mysterious man whose name is not in front of me. And both of them, Montgomery? R.A. Montgomery? Yes, I think that's his name. Anyway, they both were like, let's try to give this a go with publishing. They submit it to an agent. It gets rejected like again and again and again. They get a small publisher to publish it. It sells very well. That convinces a big publisher to publish it. And it gets like huge sales. Interestingly, Ed Packer on a family road trip says to his daughter, what do you think a good Choose Your Own Adventure book would be? This is the first book. And she's like, I don't know, in a cave, because she had just gone to summer camp and gone in a cave. He writes this first book is called The Cave of Time, for which she gets credit for the concept, and she's gotten royalties the whole time. So that's interesting. But at the center of this is like a nebulous you. So it's like you Correct. Walking through these scenarios, and like you have to make decisions that have real stakes. incredibly. And of course, one of the books is set on the Titanic, for example, and you have to try to warn someone about what's happening. And of course, nobody takes you seriously. And like, you know, we all know how that ends. But I think a key difference, according to like people who have looked at this, is sort of like there are real stakes in the choose your own adventure books. Like as crazy as they get, some of them are about aliens. We won't even go into that hearing, but like, you know, the stakes feel real to the reader, that like you have real agency and the stakes you make will determine the outcome of like this bigger situation you find yourself in. I think for me, that was lacking in this book. Like that's the thing I missed. We have this kind of like nebulous character who is not us, but we're walking with her back into the past. Like we're grounded with her in the beginning of the book, at least my beginning of the book, in her playing piano, and she plays Lift Every Voice and Sing. And when she plays that song, she goes back in time to Melody's world, and she can come back and forth playing that song. But like we go home with her. We see her mom's conversation. Her dad's a congressman. Like she has, like, there's a whole fleshed out character that we're just sort of like walking besides. It's not us.
So I think that's interesting because you're supposed to take on her point of view. And to the question about there being no stakes, everything that happens in this book, it would matter a lot whether her point of view is from being young and Black or not.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
You are not asked to know that, nor are you asked to decide that. And this is not me criticizing the author. This is something that I could not really get past. And I'll talk about like the journey that I chose to take the first time that I read it through and kind of like what that involved and did not involve. But that's where it was very hard for me to assess. Are you supposed to assume that because she knows what is a very important Black spiritual song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, that the POV is that you are a young Black person? Like, did you assume that as you went back with her or no?
I guess I did, because there was a scene in one of I went through this book 2 or 3 times, and in one of those attempts, I'm in the bedroom with the sisters, and Lila is braiding or attempting to braid Melody's hair. Melody's too excited and she won't sit still. But when I was in that scene, I was like, this is very like intimate as a scene, but also the way they were talking about hair braiding, I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to understand this. And I felt uncomfortable because as a white person, of course I don't. And I was like, this just puts, I'm like, I know I'm not that character. Like she is differentiated from like us as the reader, but it felt sort of like, should this be happening? Like, does this feel like appropriation? Like what are you supposed to feel?
But if she is not you, right? Because you are correct that you are supposed to walk alongside and be kind of within the POV of this character. Why make her cultural context so superficial, right? We learn that her father is working all the time. This is like the modern American like girl boss move. Like someone is running for office in the family.
Yep.
Mom is an administrator of a school where the budget is really strapped. And so music is in danger. It really, really matters the lessons that this person takes away, what their background is. And so keeping that impossible to discern, I think, is a really fascinating choice on behalf of the brand. And this is honestly me not picking apart how an author chose to do it. It just made me think a lot about the medium. Really and truly, like, books are my favorite hobby because I love inhabiting someone else's point of view. I didn't understand if I was me next to this person. I didn't understand how to read this book. Like, I'm actually being serious. I had a hard time juggling who is this person, because dropping a young white person who is clueless in Detroit in the summer of 1964 is still very different than dropping a young Black person who has experienced life in the mid 2000s and is now living in 1964. And that differentiation never happens in any of the journeys you go on. Like, she's part of a sit-in at one point and you don't understand how people are interacting with her based on race or background.
Right. And, I just sort of like, I'm wondering, like, I don't know what the author's process was, but in terms of like thinking about taking this on, like, are you imagining like a broader white readership of American Girls books? And are you thinking to yourself at some point, like, if I engage time travel, I'm also engaging white supremacy. Like, you can't go back in time without engaging that. And like, how is the genre choice of this book or the setup of it, of a choose your own adventure, like kind of trying to sidestep that? Like, we can't all choose the same adventure in the past. Not to like be the like to read too much into this, because I know it's a kid's book, but hello, like that's what this whole show is. Like, I mean, it would be very different. And I wondered about like would there be moments of code switching if, you know, I'm a white girl from Connecticut reading this book. If I showed up in their past as me, like would there have been code switching in the scene in the theater where that's being shut down? I don't know if you went on that adventure, or like some other elements, like, or in the family moments or in the church. Like it just feels like it would be different. So I feel like, you know, I don't envy anyone who attempted to write this kind of book, because I think it's very, very challenging. But I'm wondering, like, it did make me think about that the whole time I read it.
So I want to speak to how I chose to do this, right? So we open up with a musical scene, and I flip to the end to see like roughly, you know, just I like to know how long is it going to take me to do my first read through, because I saw that there are more than 20 ways to read this book. So I was curious, right? Like, how am I going to actually do this? And I chose to go upstairs, right? Like there's a very basic choice you make within the first 20 pages. And I recorded a song with Dwayne. That was the choice that I made.
I'm actually really jealous of this because I never got there.
You never got there, but here's what's really fascinating as kind of a commentary on the year that this book came out, which is 2016. I kept looking, again, this is the benefit of a physical book for how I chose to read it. I kept looking at the pages in between, and I kept seeing that there was a world in which I would have met Rosa Parks, and there was a world in which I was like part of a boycott and a sit-in and all these other experiences. When I tell you that the Dwayne journey I went on was so basic and there was literally no activism, there was a way to sit and read this book where you engaged in like truthfully no activism. And then I flip back through and there's, you know, a scene where like Dwayne has a confrontation with the police. I experienced none of that because I chose to go upstairs, which I think is maybe a commentary on class, but I followed someone upstairs. I recorded a song with Dwayne. It made me feel like, am I like a Drake side character or something? That was my preliminary experience. When I read all the different ways that you could process this and started flipping back through, it was stunning to me that you could read this entire book as I did my first go through and have no encounter with Rosa Parks, no conversations with Yvonne, just Hit Town USA.
Damn. I mean, First of all, I'm really disappointed at apparently how basic this was, because in my mind, again, when I was reading this on a train, a child alone on a train, you know how on the Kindle you just like tap and it goes to the next page? Like I had a page at the end of, okay, never mind.
I've never touched a Kindle. Like
not even like on your phone, like the phone app?
Never.
Or your laptop? Okay, well, whatever. So anyway, it's like if you just tap the page at the bottom, it will go to the next page. So I did that because I was at the end of a chapter, but I didn't really, and I hadn't chosen the option yet. At the end of my chapter, I'd get like, click this or click that, basically. Go upstairs, stay downstairs. And maybe this is a difference between us, but I hit stay downstairs. I was like, I feel safe down here, whatever. But I also, before that, I tried to see if it would let me go to the next page, and it would. And it was like all about Dwayne. And then I was like, well, I don't know what this is about because it was kind of out of context. So I went back and picked stay downstairs. Then I ended up with Yvonne and whatever. But I was just like, I'm sorry, like, why can't all of us, like, why can't Dwayne be part of every storyline? And it also just felt like my choices took me to a lot of activist activities, which I'm not mad at. But you know what? Some of us like to let our hair down at the end of the day, too. I would have liked to hang out with Dwayne after being at a sit-in or running in the rain after Rosa Parks to return her umbrella and getting a little, like, you know, TED talk on leadership. Like, that was all wonderful. And it's like, I would also like to have, like, girls want to have some fun. And I had no fun. I was like on the clock the entire time I read this book.
It sets up like kind of, to me, like an unintentionally fascinating commentary on like the world of 2016, like right on the precipice where it's like, you could choose to actually live in reality and be horrified, or you could record a song with Dwayne.
You know what? I mean, like kind of Barbie part one.
I didn't understand the consequences of choosing being with Dwayne and the three ravens. I had a great time, but I knew, like, lingering in the background, I was like, there's a Rosa Parks drop in. I've seen the word bookmobile. I don't know yet what that involves. I know there's a soda shop moment.
Yes, there was. I can tell you about my plot lines because I was out there doing stuff in the streets, not necessarily having a lot of fun, but like, we got some things done. So I'll just like let you know what Melody and I were up to. In the first pass I took through this book, I ended up in the basement stuffing envelopes with Lila and Yvonne and Melody. And that's where I met Rosa Parks. And when I say meet, I mean I saw her across the room with Melody, and we both were like freaked out nervous, like the time I met Jen Rosati, except I didn't meet her. And when they were like, oh my God, now she's leaving, and we didn't speak to her because they were like really in their heads about what to say. Again, highly relatable. And then one of them was like, oh my God, she forgot her umbrella. And then you have to choose. Do you want to tell Yvonne that Rosa Parks forgot her umbrella? Or do you want to grab the umbrella yourself and run out in the street and return it and like have a moment? So of course I chose that. And Rosa Parks was lovely and basically said, like, we were basically like, we're your biggest fans. Like Melody and I were like, and this character, not me, was like, I'm your biggest fan. And Rosa Parks was like, you know what? Like everyone can be a leader. Doesn't matter how old you are. Like everyone can make a change in their community. Very empowering. We go back inside. We end up going to the bookmobile with Lila. I guess the next day, time is like a flat line in this book. And Lila makes the remark that there's only one book in the whole bookmobile by a Black author. Mm-hmm. And it's a collection of poems by Langston Hughes. And so this character who I'm with is basically like, I'm remembering Rosa Parks. I'm going to do something in my community. And basically starts a game of telephone in the line of the bookmobile, telling every kid to request a book by a Black author so they'll buy more books by Black authors. End of journey.
I have a hard time, even in like a children's book, going back in time and not immediately fearing like dating my own grandpa or Butterfly.
I'm sorry, the Back to the Future problem. I mean, that's real.
Like Butterfly affecting myself out of existence. There's something like so powerful to me. Like I think I really, really loved the Melody books because it's so about like choosing agency, right? And like choosing to be bold and to be brave. And I think the author of the Melody books, like honestly iconic moment when it's like the president was just assassinated, right? But like she puts in real historical events in a way that feels meaningful. The idea that Rosa Parks like leaves her umbrella or they start this kind of protest of the bookmobile, it felt like playing at history in a way that to me feels counter to what the best of this brand offers, right? Like I really felt reading and rereading the Molly books like I was at a kitchen table being forced to eat a vegetable I didn't want to eat. Like I was sitting with Molly having this point of view that you're supposed to kind of like sit alongside or take on of this unmarked person just doesn't work for me as a concept. And I will say, like, clearly the person who wrote this book is extremely effective at this because she's written basically all of them as part of the Be Forever series. So this is her thing. So this is not me being critical of really even this book. I was like, this is not what I asked fiction to do for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're describing is kind of like how it changes things to have the fourth wall broken.
Yes.
Like they're looking directly at us, the people in this world and the author. And I find that it takes me out of it. So like I would rather watch Molly navigate 1942 and I'm in the room, but I'm not seen by anyone else in that imaginary room. They're living their lives. They're in 1942. And I get to visit every time I open the book. And then when I'm done, I leave. And I'm not in any way influencing events there or vice versa. I mean, they might impact me as a person, but I'm not going to, like, to your point, change anything that's happening in 1942. And when Rosa Parks shows up, I literally was just like, this is such a weird gamble. Like, it took me out of it because I was like, I felt like I was in a weird textbook where it's like, obviously, like Rosa Parks is going to be taught as part of the civil rights movement, but it makes it kind of like it's her winking at us. Like, here's Rosa Parks. Like, do you want to run after Rosa Parks and return her umbrella? And it's like, I don't want to impact Rosa Parks. Like, I want to leave her alone in the distance of time. Like, she doesn't need to have a conversation with some like fake character that's my proxy in this book. You know what I mean? Like, it makes it seem like it's not real. And
Yes.
I want it to feel real.
I think where I can view this as having the potential to empower, right? If not for me personally, but for a different reader, this idea that you could feel yourself in any place, and whether this is true or not, but like in any place and any time, that you could be brave enough to take action, right? Because I think that's like a big part of the underlying thrust of this book. The notion that, you know, within like moments of seeing injustice at the bookmobile, you are there for like a defining moment, or the fact that you could be put back into that soda shop and that you would sort of act a certain way. There's something that I find like increasingly important about the fact that Felicity is written as so clueless, right? That Felicity like chooses to not see, and that we've been able to kind of talk about that and like work through that and think about that. There's something so telling about the moment in which that was written. This book asks us, as you say, to kind of like play and like gamify the moment. And we were asked to do that when we were kids with Oregon Trail, and to kind of like figure out a way to survive. We are both currently like not doing a great job, but we are taking care of Tamagotchis. And
it's not going great.
It's not going great.
That.
Mine is in the car. It's hot. You know what? I'm sorry. Like, I'm not perfect.
Oh my God. As a parent,
I don't
didn't your
have
car like make an alarm so you wouldn't close the door, or like check before? My car's not new enough to do that, but like I know cars do that now.
I don't have a car that does that. The van that we drive at work is always like, did you check the back seat? And I'm like, you know what? Good call. No, my Tamagotchi is in the car. The sun is going down. I'm going to have to go with it. But this idea that like you would drop into any period in time and you would know to do the right thing, I think maybe felt more sincere and possible for an authorial group even 7 years ago. Like today, that hits me like really different.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, I think it kind of, if anything, reading this book really pointed to me how difficult it is to write historical fiction, and how much even more difficult it must be to do it for an audience of children. Like, I think what I'm learning, or what I'm just like coming down on, is like choose your own adventure that invites any reader, you don't know who's going to read your book, into a past that's fraught with so many inequities and whatever. Like, the last thing you should do is do a choose your own adventure framing. And like, you should not like just create that world with your own knowledge and invite us there as spectators who can't influence events. Like, I just feel like after reading this book, I feel pretty strongly about that.
This protagonist also is not, she's just like not an 18th of as concerned as I would be that I'm not going to get out. And what she's
not worried at all. There's never a moment where she panics. She's like, okay, cool. Like, literally in the first one I told you about, when she's stuffing envelopes, they're like, do you want to come stuff envelopes tomorrow? In other words, like, stay overnight. And she's like, no problem. And she was like, I see Melody like calling her mom to ask if she can do something. Theoretically, I would ask my mom, but like, I don't know, she's not here and I don't know how time works. She's like, YOLO, like, I'm going to stay. And it's like, what?
Do you think that we're told that the protagonist's mother is not even alive yet in 1964, so that we as adults won't perseverate on the fact that she could like create herself out of existence with like the wrong goofy decision? Or that was just me?
I don't think it's just you, but like, I don't know that I was like fixating on that. But yeah, that's a good point. But also, like, with the mom of it all, like the pattern of the book is like the family fixes something in 1964. The main protagonist goes back to whatever year that's supposed to be in the present. And she's like, yeah, mom. And then like she does something mirroring what she's seen Melody do. And like basically the end of the second time I read it, she was like, yeah, mom, like you should do something to save the music program at school. And her mom's like, okay, I'll try. And she's like, thumbs up, like I did it. And it's like it also makes weird comparisons between like what Melody and her family are doing and like what this person is doing in like 2000 whatever.
So the key to moving through time in this book is singing Lift Every Voice and Sing. And I think something I kind of got, hung up on was in the first Melody book, right, her ability to sing the solo and then to be joined by a chorus of people who support and love her and have gotten her through the trauma, really, of learning about the bombing that had just occurred that summer. That's such a moment of like collective community power. And then in this book, we were talking about this off air, kind of like a 90s sitcom. Now there's just suddenly this like eccentric funny way that this song becomes like a tool to travel through time.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many, it's interesting because you brought that up, and it's like, there are so many moments in the sitcoms we grew up on where for no reason, like, I don't know if the writers just like lost ideas. Like, I don't know, they were like out of ideas and they're like, time travel, let's do it. But there were so many shows that basically like used time travel to change things or to explore something. But the things they used them for were like actually stunning. Like the one of the most prominent examples to me is like in Saved by the Bell when Zach goes and visits his dead Indigenous ancestor. And it's just like, I'm incredulous that even happened.
Well, we were talking about Family Matters, right? Which was, to me, like, my family didn't really watch Cosby Show. And so Family Matters was, for me, like, the first mainstream sitcom that I watched that featured a Black family in the 1990s. And that show dealt with a lot of topics. They dealt with, you know, the father being a member of the police and his own son, right? Like dealing with a bad encounter with a police officer when he's pulled over. That show at some point decided that, like, instead of just having a quirky neighbor, they would have that neighbor create himself a hot body double who would tease the teenage daughter in the family. And they would use time travel to like further enrich the show. I remember watching that being like 9 and thinking, I don't need this. Like, the family drama was enough for me. Like, I was a huge Step by Step fan. I was like, I don't need magic and surrealism. Like, I just need an interesting dynamic and I'm good.
So you weren't into Stefan, the Steve to Stefan changeover?
No, and I found it, like, if you don't recall this particular plot line, like, the goofy neighbor who has a longstanding crush on daughter Laura can enter into what is basically, like, a Ken doll box made for an adult and turn into, like, a conventionally attractive person who's very smooth and suave. I never knew what you were really supposed to get from that.
Yeah, it's very odd. And then, like, as the show ends, Laura gets to choose, like, basically who she wants to be with, Stefan or Steve, and she chooses Steve. So it's kind of like nerds win, ? But it's like, did he use that science to any other end other than to make himself hot? Like,
you know, honestly,
I
like,
mean,
I'd have to go back into the archive to determine, you know, but to that point, right, like, the music, right, has such a power that is so spiritual and profound and impactful in the melody books. And to me, real. Like, you know, I am not a fantasy girly. In this book, it's like, well, if I just sing a song, like, I'll end up somewhere else. If you were, like, curious about my take on this book, like, clearly this is just, like, not a genre that I fall into easily.
Yes, I think, like, you're not vibing on the choose your own adventure like standard, and I'm with you on that one. I get it. I think, like, I have nicer memories, although again, I can't remember the plots of any of the books. Like, I did read the choose your own adventure books because it just felt like cool to be surprised or to feel like you were in charge. Like, I remember that feeling of like, oh, I'm like sort of like creating the plot of this book. Like, that's cool. And I did love the Beyonce game, which I'll post a link to. And even like Oregon Trail was like the unexpected. I mean, not with no knowledge of like colonialism or white supremacy, like playing that game in like air quotes, like computer class when I was like 8 years old. Like, it felt cool, like, to not know what was going to happen. I didn't have video games at home. So like this was sort of like exciting for me. But now it's sort of looking back, especially when you said it in the past, what are you really doing? Like, we can't all choose the same adventure. And we can't all experience the past in the same way. So it kind of doesn't seem like it works.
And maybe that's, you know, my coming to it is actually me being narrow-minded, right? Like, I really felt like I need to understand my protagonist. Like, I'm so into like character-driven books. To me, the notion that I know all of these peripheral things about my protagonist, but I don't know basic things about her, to me really does feel counter to what American Girl does well. Like, it matters that Kirsten is Swedish American. Right. It matters that she doesn't speak the same language as her air quotes replacement Marta best friend Singing Bird.
Right. Right. And I think it's also kind of like, I don't know, there's just a lot swirling in my head, but I think it matters that you have an author who like firmly makes a character grounded in the past based on research And we aren't invited into it as the reader to be active participants in the narrative as it unfolds. We have a certain distance from it, which means like we can appreciate it as different than our own experience and learn from it. I just was working with some students who were working with the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center, and we went on a tour with them and whatever. And it was really interesting to hear like Harriet Beecher Stowe got a ton of criticism for a whole host of things, but among them that she had like made up a lot of the experiences that she used for the book. And then she ends up like publishing a key to the book with the anecdotes and the historical evidence that she based it on. But it's like, you know, to that point, like however problematic that book is now, like that was not, she wanted people to be moved by the narratives. She didn't invite them in a choose your own adventure. Like, I want you to map your experience on the people I'm talking about in this book. Like, it was entirely fictional. And I think having a closed loop like that seems to be important.
It's really telling to me that the peek into the past, which is called About Melody's Time in this book, it takes a really broad frame, like maybe one of like the largest kind of nets that we have looked at so far. And it talks a lot about, you know, Ruby Bridges and other like children who were activists in the 1960s. And I think I wish I had read that first, because it did provide me the perspective that like a larger arc of this book was meant to show you that like anyone can be an activist. You don't have to be an adult, right? But that felt extra bizarre to me because on my journey with Dwayne, it was like music only.
Yeah.
Like I had a nice time. I had a great time at Hitsville, USA. Right. I recorded a song. I had, you know, and there is an activist component there. And part of my journey when I went back to meet Melody, my first read, was I found my passion, which I think is an important precursor to activism. But Ruby Bridges was not saying like my passion is school integration. She was just a child forced into that situation.
Yeah, and I think that kind of brings it back to like when you differentiate between like parts of someone's life and kind of divide them up or compartmentalize them to be different air quotes adventures you can go on, you lose some of the complexity that makes all of us interesting as people. Like I can be an activist and I could be like in elementary school. Like Melody is like a student, she's a gardener, she's a daughter, sister, and an activist and all these other things, and a musician. And I think by like pulling those apart and like with the Dwayne of it all, again, I didn't go on that journey. It's like, it would seem somewhat like you don't get the complexity of Dwayne or of Melody by doing that.
Or this idea that Melody wouldn't have a lot of questions. Like she's actually a very curious person. And you're supposed to just suppose that you like drop in on her world. And we learn like, you know, that Melody takes lessons and like how all of this is going to fit together. And Melody is so welcoming immediately. She's like, oh yeah, like you're not on the roster, but it's not a problem. Like you can be part of the album. You can be part of the performance.
Right.
And like her, you know, inclination to be inclusive just like allows this person to tag along. But I just kept asking myself, like, who am I with? Like, what am I doing here? Not in a good, like, existential Barbie way, but, like, why is this particular thing happening right now?
I mean, a powerful question. I don't have an answer for you, but, like, I mean, I think the funniest part of the book to me was, like, the narrator was just in no way stressed at all about potentially being trapped in 1964.
No, truly, if you do decide to give this
she was like,
read, she's good. Like, what if I leave too early? She's like, what if I kind of flop and I'm not able to like complete what I need to do here? You know, starting and ending with the fact that she is facing problems in the contemporary world, like particularly the one that I was asked to drill down on was the school music program being defunded. That did feel kind of like eerily, you know, like foreshadowing of lots of other things that's to come. And you know that her dad is running for office and is therefore kind of absentee. And she's like, but it's fine. Like, he's finding his passion.
He's following his bliss. It's okay. But, like, you know, the music defunding plotline did remind me of Music of the Heart. I'm like, that's exactly the theme of that movie. I'm like, maybe this author was low-key a Meryl Streep. Like, wasn't Gloria Estefan in that? Am I dreaming this? NSYNC did a song for it.
That feels right. I want to shout out, you know, the person who wrote this book, right? Like, she has a background in child psychology. She certainly knows more about that than us. Like, I'm frying my Tamagotchi as we speak. She is also the author of The Lilac Tunnel, Music in My Heart, Prints in the Sand, a number of the historical character mysteries, as well as The Legend of Shark Goddess and the Joss books.
What a title. Oh my God.
So, like, speak back to us if you have a favorite. She also wrote Braving the Lake, Quick Change, Second Chances, like she is all over the place. Also a contributor to the American Girl Ultimate Visual Guide, which I have used quite a bit of and I do appreciate.
I mean, we can respect it. Wow. I mean, and also let us know to the degree to which you think these books or this genre inspired Janet Jackson's Control.
What did you make of the opening of this book, which says, "This book is about Melody, but it's also about a girl like you who travels back in time to Melody's world of 1964. You, the reader, get to decide what happens in the story." What did you make of that particular framing?
I hate that. That's where the problems begin, because it flattens the difference between me and Melody. First of all, unlike that man on the train in his thoughts, I am not Melody's age. I'm not a girl. No. Am I yet a woman? I don't know. Like, stay tuned. But I mean, it's a weird way to jump off on the book because, and I don't blame the author per se, because I think she's doing what the genre demands, which is like trying to create an opening where this would make sense to go back in time. But it flattens all the difference. I mean, is that kind of what your take was, or how did you feel about it?
I think I just learned that I am not built for this level of chaos.
Yeah. I mean, did you find Back to the Future stressful? Or yes. Kate and Leopold? Did you ever watch Kate and Leopold with Meg Ryan and Hugh Jackman?
Certainly did. Can barely handle sliding doors. Netflix tried this with a Choose Your Own Adventure television show. Did not care for that at all. I also have a glitchy remote, so that added to my stress further. I would love to meet Melody. I think she is a wonderfully interesting character. I just need a lot more information, right? Like, I need someone else kind of standing to the side. I need to understand how we're all gonna interact. And this idea that, like, one page different and I could have been helping Rosa Parks just, like, didn't work for me.
Nah, it didn't play out in a good way. I mean, I think, like, of the going back in time genre, I think, like, Kate and Leopold was the most charming and yet the least successful of all the things that we've described. But
you know, if we could go back in time, I would ask someone to please restore the Melody movie. I think that would be, like, super helpful. I think that would maybe be a choice that I would make. Or I would simply warn us, like, you think the Melody movie is going to be there, you will get Barbie, you will not get Melody. Like, Love will not win because they will remove her film that Love has to win. They will just take it away.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm with that. I guess we have nothing else to say. We've just, like, I guess we solved it. Like, don't do this anymore, I guess. But
so we've chosen our own adventure, which is that we are going to be partnering up with someone who is a museum expert and an author herself of a really fascinating book that does not involve this kind of, like, bringing a pencil into it and, like, crossing off which section you've done or not. She is, like, a longtime correspondent of the show. So we are not leaving Detroit. Like, we heard you, like, you want a lot more Melody and Detroit content. Like, that is going to be coming your way, as well as our Tamagotchi episode and, like, plenty more. So, like, do not fret. Like, we are not leaving Motown. We are probably not going to return to this genre for my safety.
That's right. I think we probably won't be back just to help you, support you. But yeah, we're very excited to have a historian of Detroit on the show. And if you belong to our Patreon or you want to join, you can listen to our last Patreon episode, which was on a history of the founder of Barbie, which might put your Barbie viewing experience in context. And this month, we're doing a Patreon episode on digital pets, including Tamagotchis and Neopets. Alice and I are each caring for a Tamagotchi. It's not going great. We'll talk more about that. And where can people find us if they want to get in touch and tell us, you know, future ideas for episodes or just, you know, hot takes?
I'm at Allison Horrocks on Twitter or X, I suppose I should say, and Instagram.
Wow.
Both of those platforms last. You can follow the show there, Dolls Lives Pod or Dolls Lives Podcast. Mary, where should people find you?
I'm technically still on that platform at Mary Mahoney 123, although I'm not on there all that much. But if you really want to get in touch, please write to me on Instagram at Mimi Mahoney. I love hearing from everyone and getting back to everyone. Yeah, that's about it. We have some great plans for future months' episodes in the works. Very excited about that. And please don't forget to pre-order our book, Dolls of Our Lives, Why We Can't Quit American Girl, which comes out November 7th. We're very excited for that as well. Thanks, everyone. See you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.